Good morning. I want to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Clemson. We are located on the land of the Cherokee and Southern Iroquois. Good morning. My name is Elaine Faithful. I am a member of the board here at UUFC and chair of the worship team. It is also my pleasure to serve as this year's chair of the annual auction, but I'll tell you more about that in a minute. First of all, I want to thank you again for coming this morning. Each week we come together as a religious community to find understanding and to nurture our spiritual well-being. This is where we seek to have our hearts opened, our imaginations fired. This is the place that reminds us that we are deeply connected to each other and to the rest of the world. All are welcome here regardless of your religious background, political persuasion, ethnicity, age, sexual orientation, or gender identity or expression. You are welcome here to this community, however you are and whoever you are. I would like to ask if we have any visitors here this morning. We'd like to extend a special welcome to you. If you wish to and are comfortable doing so, I invite you to stand and introduce yourself. There you are. Please, okay, never mind, I'll pass on that. Finally, I'd like to greet our visitors and members who are watching online this morning. We are a little envious of you that you are sitting at home with your dog in your lap and drinking, huh? No, we're not. I am. And drinking a cup of hot cocoa. I'd like to make a few announcements. We will be putting in the mitten tree today. You'll find it in the social hall. This is an annual program that we do here at UUFC where we gather mittens and scarves to donate to the Circle of One this year. Oh, Ripple of One. Our annual auction, if you could cue that up for me, please, is going to be on December the 2nd. Here at 5 o'clock. We are still taking donations. If you could go to the next one. And here's a few ideas. We've got lots of wonderful donations that have already been made, but I'd like to fill out the donation a little bit fuller. So if you'll look at these and think about what you might have at home or what gift of skill you have yourself, I invite you to contact me or Jennifer Reese. Jennifer's out in the kitchen, or Leslie Visage about, you can talk to us today if you've got some ideas. We'll be in the library. Let us rise in body, mind, and spirit to sing together hymn number 369, Earth is Our Homeland. Please be seated. These are our opening words this morning. There is nothing you need to bring with you to be welcome here. No rights, beliefs, or proof of citizenship. No eternal optimism or endless expertise. You do not need to know what brought you here, or how you are resolving that thing in your head that plays over and over again. Your bills do not need to be paid or your checkbook balanced. Your children may have been up half the night. Your hearing aids may not be working. Your knees may be creaking. You do not already need to be perfect or even halfway to belong to this circle, where grace meets us where we are, but does not leave us where we were found. Where love resides in each of us, yet is somehow more than all. Where life still pushes and rages and heals and transforming each of us, creating us on a new day. Come, let us worship together.
Come on down. Thank you. As we light our chalice, I invite you to share the words of affirmation in the bulletin. We gather together in a spirit of love, with justice as our guide. This is our chosen covenant, to dwell together in peace, to speak the truth with freedom, and to care for one another. Are we doing the responsive reading next?
No, not now.
Oh, okay, that's what it says here. All right. Time for all ages. That's what it is.
Due to our last-minute pivot this week, there will be no slides for the story this morning. So given that our theme is now, what do I believe and why, I'm simply going to tell you a story, and I would like for you, as you listen to the story, to think about what you believe is true about the story and what is actually going on, and why. Once upon a time, there was a teacher named Sophia. Sophia had been a teacher in the town where she lived for so long that the kids she first had in her class grew up and had kids of their own and sent them to her class too. Nearly everyone in the town knew Sophia and loved her because not only was she an excellent teacher, but she was also very kind. One day, when Sophia got to work, she found a note on her desk. The note read, "Dear Sophia, I will be around tomorrow. I wonder if I might stop by your house for tea tomorrow afternoon. Your friend, God." At first, Sophia thought it was a joke. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that if it was a joke, it wasn't a very funny joke. And she couldn't think of anyone who would play a joke on her like that. Then she thought, what if it wasn't a joke? What if God really was going to come to her house tomorrow afternoon? Sophia thought she should get ready, just in case. On her way home from work, she stopped by the store and bought one of those mats people put on their porch that says in big letters, "Welcome." When she got home, she cleaned her house from top to bottom. She brought in fresh flowers from the garden and put them in a vase in the living room. She cleaned and cleaned until everything was sparkly. In the morning, Sophia realized she didn't know what God liked to eat. So she baked bread and made a casserole and fruit salad and baked some cookies too. But what about the tea? Did God like hot tea or iced tea? She thought she'd better make both. And what if God's favorite thing in the whole world was lemonade? She thought she should make some of that too. She was so nervous. She didn't know what to expect. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Sophia's heart went pat, pat, pat. She took a big breath, opened the door slowly, and on the other side was the mayor of the town. "Hello, Sophia. I was walking by and smelled the delicious fresh-baked bread." Sophia said, "I'm glad you're here. Come in, come in. I'm expecting a very important visitor who you might want to meet. Please come in and make yourself at home." Sophia and the mayor sat, having a nice discussion, when there was a knock at the door. Sophia's heart went pat, pat, pat. She took a deep breath, opened the door slowly, and on the other side was a group of children from her class. "Hello, Miss Sophia. We were walking by and noticed the smell of fresh-baked cookies." Sophia said, "I'm so glad you're here. Come in, come in. I'm expecting a very important visitor who you might want to meet. Please come in and help yourself to some cookies." The children were giving the mayor some much-needed advice when there was a knock at the door. Sophia's heart went pat, pat, pat. Deep breath, open door. It was the entire Women's Covenant group from church. "Hello, Sophia. We heard the tea kettle and laughter and thought you might be having a party." Sophia said, "I'm so glad you're here. Come in, come in. I'm expecting a very important visitor who you might want to meet. Please come in and make yourself at home." All afternoon, people stopped by Sophia's house, lured by the yummy smells and happy sounds. The townspeople filled her house, upstairs and downstairs, and overflowed into the backyard and the front yard. As they got hungry, they made dinner together and ate as the sun set and the moon rose. It was a great party. People were playing games and telling stories and baking and playing music and talking together. Sophia had such a nice time that she completely forgot about her very important guest. Even as she waved goodbye to her friends at the end of the night, she felt only contentment at having such a lovely party. In the morning, though, Sophia woke up and remembered everything. She was confused. Whatever had happened to God? All during her walk to work, she tried to figure out what had happened. Along the way, she smiled and waved to the people she ran into who had been at her party. She thought to herself that she really should do that again sometime. When Sophia arrived at work, she was surprised to find another note on her desk. It read, "Dear Sophia, I had such a wonderful time yesterday. The bread was delicious, the cookies were divine, tea mixed with lemonade is my very favorite. Thank you for being such a wonderful host. I hope we can do it again soon. Love, God."
Each week, we collect an offering. The generous gifts that you offer to us are used to support the work of this congregation, but also the work of our partner community organizations that provide important services to much-needed folks in our community. Our organization this week is the Circle of One.
going to sing our child out. Joyce and Consensus. Okay, our first concern. Oh, yes. Thank you. Our first concern is, of course, for Reverend Holley, who contracted COVID this week and is at home recuperating. I talked to her on Friday. Have you talked to her more recently?
No.
Okay. But anyway, if you're watching at home, Reverend Holley, we want you to know that we're all thinking about you and hoping for a speedy recovery. And also anyone else that got COVID as a result of being exposed last week. Okay, our first joy and concern is from Alan Goldsmith, and he is hoping that Victor Young recovers speedily from COVID, okay? Yeah. And let's see. Ellen Few has a joy. I finally have a new road. What kind of appointment is it, Ellen?
Neurology.
What?
Neurology.
Neurology. I'm reading it as new. That's what it is. Neurology appointment at MUSC Charleston for January, and we hope everything turns out well. Dee's concern is her brother-in-law Don is getting ready for bone marrow transplant because of cancer. And I have, Demetra has a concern. She has a project at home that she's physically unable to finish alone. It involves sanding, corking wood, and removing sidelights from her front door. She has this equipment, she has the sanders, and if anyone can help, Demetra, want to raise your hand so we'll know who you are? Please speak to her. I know she would appreciate it. And also, Elaine has a special joy / concern, and that is, despite her upbringing, she has become a Clemson Tiger women's basketball only fan. Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
And a last stone for joys not shared and concerns not expressed that you carry in your hearts.
Holly, I think you missed one.
I did? Oh, there's one. That's an announcement.
Yeah. There was a concern expressed about Rudy Mason. It's written down and turned in.
Oh, I'm sorry, it got under another sheet of paper there. Yeah, thank you. Kathy's sadness is the passing of Rudy Mankey, South Carolina's state naturalist, who has been treated with such love and respect by the media, and much sadness is helped by this. Yeah, we will all miss Rudy Mankey and his very soft, steady voice on the radio. Okay. All right, and now we will sing the children out. Go now in peace, go now in peace. And now, if you will rise and by your spirit, we'll sing Spirit of Life.
If you remain seated, I invite you now to speak with me the responsive reading, which will be shown here on the screen as well as in our hymnal. I think the number's there in your order of service. 654. We up? Do I need to do it without it? Excuses for some technical. There we go.
Actually, it's supposed to be 657. 654. No, it's supposed to be 657.
657. Yeah, it's on the, it's wrong in the order of service. It's right on the screen. Join me now. Some beliefs are like walled gardens. They encourage exclusiveness and the feeling of being specially privileged. Our beliefs are expansive and lead the way to wider and deeper certainties. Some beliefs are in the shadows, clouding children's days with fears of unknown calamities. Our beliefs are like sunshine, blessing children with the warmth of happiness. Some beliefs are divisive, separating the saved from the unsaved, friends from the enemies. Our beliefs are bonds in the world's community where sincere differences beautify the pattern. Some beliefs are like blinders, shutting off the power to choose our own direction. Our beliefs are like gateways, open wide vistas for exploration. Some beliefs weaken a person's selfhood. They blight the growth of resourcefulness. Our beliefs nurture self-confidence and enrich the feeling of personal growth. Some beliefs are rigid, like the body of death, impotent in a changing world. Our beliefs are pliable, like young sapling, ever growing with upward thrust of life. Thank you.
Before I begin, I do want to, we had an overlooked announcement, and that's Habitat. Let me find if I can find it here. Anyway, there's Habitat is working this Saturday. What time, Gordon?
Typically from 9 to about 1. Kathy submitted that, I need to correct it. We're proposing that it be this Saturday instead of the usual fourth Saturday,
Because of Thanksgiving.
depending on responses.
Because you're afraid that there won't be a crew on the day of the Clemson, South Carolina game, right? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, okay, it's 9 to
9 to 1.
9 to 1 on this coming Saturday, the 18th. And if you want to know more about it, Gordon's right back there. You can talk to him later. I have been a Unitarian Universalist for 33 years. During most of that time, I never thought much about the Trinity. I dismissed it as kind of a Greco-Roman invention that wasn't faithful to the Jewish origins of our faith tradition, and it was sexist to boot. 2 men and a ghost. So I still object to the masculinity of the Trinity and the absence of the divine female. Having grown up without a father, the image of God as Father didn't really speak to me anyway. But over the years, the question of the Trinity has been posed to me in other ways that made me reconsider. It doesn't mean I'm not going to be Unitarian. Don't worry about that. The most common objection to the Trinity is it's not found explicitly in the New Testament, and also that it's a form of polytheism. That label, Unitarian, was coined to describe those heretics who deny the Trinity or a commitment to monotheism. Or as my fellow Unitarian Ralph Burns used to say, we believe in, at most, one God. While Unitarian Universalists loudly proclaim that we do not have mandatory beliefs, there is a covert message that there may be some mandatory disbeliefs. The label Unitarian strongly suggests that disbelief in the Trinity falls into that category. In some UU circles, particularly on the Unitarian humanist end of our spectrum, God is, if not a mandatory disbelief, at least a suggested or recommended one. I was once told by a longtime member of this congregation, now deceased, that people who believe in God are stupid. I've heard variants of that so often that I had to create a response. And my response is, what kind of God do you not believe in? In fact, a former colleague once asked me if I believed in God, and I said yes. And he said, what kind of God? And I said, oh, Paul Tillich's God, the ground of our being, the spirit of life. Just as I thought, he said, you're an agnostic. And I replied, you don't get to define God for me. Universalism has its own mandatory disbelief. It denies the existence of a hell in the afterlife, while admitting that it can be experienced on earth. There are times when I'm so angry at people doing great harm without any apparent consequences, and I will not name any, that I say sometimes to myself and sometimes out loud, I wish I could believe in hell. But deep in my heart, I do know the difference between belief and wishful thinking. I also know that belief in hell is, for some people, a cry for justice, if not in this world, then perhaps in the next. About 10 years ago, I found myself at a potluck in our social room, sitting next to a seeker, a gay Catholic, who felt unwelcome in his faith tradition. He had some questions about whether he could find a religious home here in our faith tradition. First, he asked, if I become a Unitarian Universalist, can I still believe in God? Well, that was not a hard question. Yes, I said, some of us do and some of others do not. We differ about what we mean by God, and the word God seldom comes up in worship. When it does, God may be addressed as spirit of life or source of all. The second question was much harder. How about the Trinity, he asked. I thought for a moment. Finally, I said, if you think of the Trinity as God beyond, God beside, God within, rather than some concrete embodiments as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, then yes, you can. I suspect that answer didn't quite satisfy his needs because I think he wound up at Peace Church, which was a good fit. I was happy about that. But it satisfied mine, thinking of the Trinity as three different ways in which we can encounter the sacred as the ground of our being, our companions on the journey, and in the divine spark that dwells within. That speaks to me as a person of faith. Whether it speaks to anyone else in this room is a question only you can answer. Those of us who grew up in the traditional Christianity probably learned the hymn, Holy, 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 which ends with God in three persons, blessed unity. If I'm in a church service, I always kind of engage in subterfuge and say, God in one person, blessed unity. But I do the same thing with the Clemson alma mater when I'm standing on the, used to stand on the stage at graduation and saying, we're the daughters of dear old Clemson, reign supreme always. And the man sitting next to me, who was the head of student affairs, looked at me strangely. I said, hey, Bob Joe, you've got sons, I've got daughters. But anyway, back to the Trinity. Concrete thinkers hear this as referring to three distinct entities, meaning that Christianity is not monotheism. That reading is reflected in the three creeds or belief statements that are for many people the litmus test of Christianity: the Apostles' Creed, the Nicene Creed, and the one written especially for us to condemn us to hell as Arian heretics, the Athanasian Creed. The writer of this hymn and others who refer to the three persons of the Trinity are victims of bad translation. Persona is a Latin word that does not mean a person in the sense of a human being. A human being is a homo, as in Homo sapiens, although I have doubts about the sapiens part, because it means wise. Persona means a manifestation, a role, a costume, a mask. Each of us contains within us many personae. I have a mother persona, an economist persona, a writer persona, a political persona, that's the loudest one, a spiritual persona, a friend persona, among others. And sometimes they even conflict with each other. Three faces of Eve is not enough. I am way past Trinitarian in my persona, and so are you, but I'm still one person, one human. Religions are full of numbers that are considered sacred, and the most common one is 3. The others are 7 and 12. Wiccans embrace the triune goddess of maiden, mother, and crone. The Hindu pantheon contains 3 primary objects of worship: Vishnu, Shiva, and Devi, all manifestations of the one, very like Christianity. It satisfies the needs of concrete thinkers who do not wish to address their prayers to whom it may concern. Other numbers are also popular. Jews have the 10 Commandments. Buddhists have the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. Muslims have 5 pillars of Islam. But 3 seems to be a special favorite, perhaps as we learn from behavioral economics, because fewer choices are usually easier than many. Our brains can only cope with this limited number of ideas at one time. God, the distant, transcendent source of all, is a variant that some UUs can live with. God the Son, not quite so popular. When asked by well-intentioned Christians if Unitarians believe that Jesus was divine, I have to start with a mandatory answer. The mandatory answer is, I cannot speak for my fellow Unitarians, only for myself. Remember that one, it's very important. But each of us is not only encouraged, but expected to formulate our own beliefs. I did that the first time at leadership school. We wrote a credo, or a belief statement, that has evolved for me over the years by teaching the UU curriculum, Building Your Own Theology. However, to answer the question, here's my answer. I can speak for myself as a Unitarian Universalist. I would say that Jesus was divine, even as you are divine and I am divine, but I think he got a much bigger helping. Nevertheless, the divine spark is in us all. So Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are not the only trinities out there in the realm of spirituality and religion, or for that matter, in the secular world. The motto of the French Revolution was Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité, or better translated, freedom, equality, and brotherhood, or community, rather than fraternity. I hesitate to put sorority in there. Economics has its own trinity of efficiency, equality, and freedom, although in practice the father god of that particular religion is definitely efficiency. Unitarian historian Earl Morse Wilbur created a trinity he claimed summed up our beliefs as freedom, reason, and tolerance, or as we might say today, acceptance. Not very spiritual, but an accurate description of the humanist variant of our faith tradition as it was in the early 20th century. Paul offered us a trinity of Christian virtues that has stood the faith of time: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. And faith, by the way, is not the same thing as belief. Faith is more like trust. Aristotle liked virtues. He had about 24 of them, which would make any quest for being perfect hopeless. You know, well, today I can be patient and I can be courageous, but I can't be moderate or temperate. So I'll have a glass of wine and be those other things instead. So Aristotle did reduce them to 4 core virtues: 2 private, prudence and temperance, and 2 public, courage and justice. Thomas Aquinas says, 7. I take the 3 from Paul and the 4 from Aristotle, and those are the 7 Christian virtues, in case you never got exposed to them. And, of course, you can match them up with the 7 deadly sins. As far as I'm concerned, I think 3 virtues is enough. So 7 is a holy number not only to Thomas, but also to us, because we have the 7 principles, or 8, and the proposed 7 values. I do appreciate that the proposed revision of Article 2 provides a key word for each value, but it will take me a long time to learn them all. And I don't consider all of them of equal importance. I would like to suggest that perhaps our best version of a trinity is the one we use frequently in our chalice lightings: the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. When I became a Unitarian Universalist 33 years ago, I never thought I would be in the pulpit addressing the Trinity. I know the people in this room come from a great variety of religious backgrounds. My mother raised me in her ancestral faith, Congregationalism, not quite as long as Unitarian Universalism, but long enough. Rooted in Puritanism by the 20th century, it had become a fairly progressive denomination engaged in social justice work. Some of you may be familiar with it under its new name, United Church of Christ. I never heard the Apostles' Creed in church. Congregationalism is a historic cousin of Unitarianism. I embrace many of its values and ideals, like church democracy, and by extension, political democracy, freedom of belief, love and justice, the social gospel, the value of belonging to a group of fellow seekers. Ritual, not much. It was pretty low church. Music, celebrations of birth, marriage, and the lives of those who have died. Holidays. I want to be part of a faith community that celebrated together the meaningful turning points in our lives and that wrestled with the hard questions of belief and how we act on those beliefs. Being an academic, I was resistant to second-hand answers, ready-made answers, and that's where I separated from traditional Christianity. The other separation from Christianity was on the Universalist side. Universalism arises from the belief that a loving God could not condemn any of their children to eternal damnation, and expanded to accept that there were many paths up the mountain, and it was incumbent upon each of us to find our own. That particular heresy is embraced by most of my Christian friends. Many other faith traditions offer forms of spiritual enrichment that lie beyond the realm of the Christianity I knew. Earth-centered traditions that teach us to love and care for our planet and rejoice in our kinship with all life. Eastern traditions that teach us how to cultivate the sense of awe, wonder, and reverence that speaks to our inner mystic. African traditions with a rich sense of community, Ubuntu. Judaism with its traditions of prophecy, social justice, and radical hospitality. And moving beyond Christianity, I knew, like all of us, that I had some baggage to unload to make space for new ways of relating to the sacredness of all living beings. Unpacking the Trinity is one of them, but I can still find inspiration in Christian worship in many of its forms, especially Celtic. At the same time, my new faith community led me to many unexpected riches in new music, in history, in the varieties of transcendentalism and humanism. In the challenge to formulate my own faith that incorporates Judaism, the Tao, earth-centered traditions, and Christian practices into one unwieldy whole, I hear in this faith journey the echo of Walt Whitman, who said, "Do I contradict myself? Very well, I contradict myself. I am large. I contain multitudes." I like being a heretic because it means I have accepted the challenge to define my own religious understanding. I invite each of you to reflect on your path and what leads you into reverence, awe, and wonder. What trinities, or sevens, or 12s, or 10s, or 5s, which ones speak to you? Which ones to let go? What faith traditions are reflected in your own religious understanding? We as a faith community are here to walk together and support each other in that search. Amen. May it be so. And before we sing our last hymn, I have neglected an important duty. I need one more stone. Yesterday was Veterans Day, and it is incumbent upon us to honor and thank those who have served their country, not only those who gave their lives, but who served in so many other ways. So a stone for the veterans. And our closing hymn is, yes, right, thank you. Come sing a song with me.
Come
As you leave this place, carry with you the joyful privilege and responsibility to shape your own faith understanding, to test it against the convictions of others, and embrace it as your own. As we extinguish the chalice, take the light with you. Carry the light, share the light, be the light. Amen, and blessed be.